Here we have the Drax Biomass wagon, which I'm going to convert to P4. It's a very nicely detailed model, as you can see close up. And with P4, I'm obviously interested in the underframe part. Problem one is the way that the outer door is connected to the bogie, which when it swings on the curve is obviously totally unrealistic. Turning it over, you've also got the coupling on the bogie, which is a no-no in P4. You want the coupling attached to the body so that the coupling can't roll the bogie. And I shall be fitting the Buckeye type from KD. So now let's have a closer look at the problems of the bogie. And the bogie is detached from the body by applying a screwdriver in there, and it's a bit of a feel, and then I rotate there we go. I rotate that and then it comes off. So here is the bogie separated, and the wheels. Here's another set of the wheels shown there against the P4 wheels, which I shall use. Which are there. See, there's a large difference in the width of the wheel. Here we have the Hornby bogie that I've taken off the Biomass wagon, and I'm going to replace it with this. This is the Stenson models, which comes from Colin Craig, which is now marketed by Will Perkins, and this is about the third or fourth attempt of doing this, so I've experimented an awful lot, but I've decided to use this one, the Gloucester GPS disc brake sprung bogie kit. And the reason for this is that it's one of two sprung bogies that Colin Craig has done that is 2 meters in distance between the wheels. Most of them are 1800. All the Y25s are 1800. And there were 2 to choose from, but I've decided on this one. But notice that it's a disc brake, so there's no brakes. The actual bogie that is modelled by Hornby shows that there are 2 brakes, no outside brakes, but 2 inner brake blocks, as you can see there. So it's sprung, and we'll have a look at that. And if I use my screwdriver, you can see that it is indeed sprung. Doesn't need to deviate very much. But is sprung. And you'll also notice that I have the inner brake blocks lined up with the wheels. So this took quite a lot of thinking about. And what I've used here are from the kit for the Y25s of Colin Craig, and I've used their bearings carriers, which have 2 brake blocks on each wheel, one each side, and I've cut one of them off. The bearing that comes with the original kit is like that, which has no attachments for brakes because it's discs. So let's just have a quick look, interesting, at the wheels comparison. I'll put one rim up against the other. And now I'll just move the camera. You can see a whopping difference in the width of the wheels. And that's really what P4 is all about. This is what 4mm scale modelling is. The black wheels are HO scaled wheels at 16.5mm between the rails of the track, and it should be scaled with the British rail gauge of 4 foot 8.5 at 4mm to the foot. That is 18.83mm, which is almost 2.5mm wider than the 00 gauge that we use. And this, of course, causes all sorts of problems when converting. If we look at the brakes that are supplied by Hornby here and here, and you try and use those, then when I pull that bogie apart, this is the parts you have, and I put the brake pad up to one of the wheels there, you can see there is a large difference, again 2.5 mils difference, between the P4 width of the wheels and the 00 gauge. So this is not really an option to reuse these in their present state. There's a little bit of stuff here between the brake blocks, and I'm not sure if I'm going to use that or not, because basically it's going to be hidden. There is inevitably going to be compromises. I'll do the best I can. The first thing is to be able to run smoothly on P4 track, but the actual bogie is a TF25, which is a TF standing for track force 25, and then after that, more recently, it becomes the low track force LTF or LN25 produced by Axiom. And with the TF25 you get this dampener which is attached to the bogie and clamps on here. So when the bogie moves in the Hornby model, because it's all attached to the hopper doors, it all moves as one, which is fine. But again, which priority do I want to take? And I've decided that I want the end hopper doors to be permanently fixed, which means that it has to be detached from here, from the bogie. And I decided where to make a cut, and I decided to make a cut here. Two other problems to sort out is the height there between the bottom of the underframe and the top of the bogie, and also the amount of packing between the bogie and the underframe so as to get the correct rail height for the buffers. Thankfully there is an article in the Diesel and Electric files of Rail Express Modeler dated September 2013, and here we have a scale drawing of the Drax biomass wagons, and therefore by looking at the diagram I can work out two things. First of all, here the height of the buffers are 1055 millimeters above the rail height, and then I can measure the distance between the top of the bogie and the bottom of the underframe. And while we're here, you can also see that the wheel diameter used is 840 millimeters. Here, unfortunately, produces two more compromises, because 840 mil wheels, which are becoming the norm now for all TF25, LN25 bogies, 840 mil is equivalent to 11 mil in 4mm scale. So what we need to use is 11 mil wheels, and unfortunately they are not produced in P4 or scale 4. We have to choose between the two nearest, 12 mil or 10.5 mil. The one on the right there is ultra scale 12 mil. The one on the left is from Branch Lines, which comes from Australia with a company called Steam Era, and they are 10.5 mil. And guess what? It looks like Steam Era is not going to be producing any more 10.5 mils. And yet this is becoming absolutely the requirement for modern rolling stock. Not quite 10.5, but certainly 11 mil. So we got a choice between 12 mil, 10.5, and the only way was to look at it and see, and I've decided that the 12 mil was just too big by 1mm diameter, whereas the 10.5 is only 0.5 millimeter difference in diameter, so it's closer. That then produces another height problem, because 0.5 millimeter difference in diameter, which is a 1/4 millimeter difference in radius, means that where the bogie should normally be, it's going to sit 1/4 millimeter too low. So one needs to allow for that in the packing. Yet at the same time, you want to keep the height between the top of the bogie and the bottom of the underframe not too large a gap. So I hope that soon, and I think there is some proposals to produce scale wheels at 11mm diameter. In OO gauge, not a problem. This is the Hornby OO gauge 11mm wheels, and as you can see on the radius, it's not too bad. It's a huge difference in the width, and of course the coarseness of the rim, the flange, the width of the tread, etc, etc. Difference between the scale wheels and the OO gauge wheels, even though these are reasonably good 00 wheels. So that's another problem which has to be sorted. Several compromises, unfortunately, but the way I've tackled it is really by trial and error, looking at the aesthetics of it to see what looks best. I will now show you how it was all completed. Here is a quick test of the underframe. And now for some bloopers. Oops, there we go. And I decided to make a cut here. And so we then end up with